still. Who let this filthy black animal walk into my bank?
Karen Wilson screamed it, smiling. Imani Taylor froze.
Smelling like the projects! Ma'am, please. Please what? Crawl back to your crack house, monkey!
The guard stared at his shoes.
I run this bank, and things like you don't even deserve to breathe my air out.
Imani's knuckles went white around the leather folder. She said nothing. Karen had 11 minutes left in the only career she'd ever known, and every filthy word was another nail in a coffin she was building herself. Let me take you back. Back before the scream, before the folder, before the marble lobby went silent. Let me tell you who Imani Taylor really was. Imani was 38 years old, born in Birmingham, Alabama, on a rainy November night in 1988. Her mama died when she was 4. Her daddy? Gone before she could even say the word. So it was just Imani and her grandmother, Ruth Taylor, in a tiny 2-bedroom house with a sagging porch and a kitchen that always smelled like cornbread. Ruth cleaned white folks' houses for 32 years. 32 years of scrubbing other people's toilets so her granddaughter could have school shoes that fit. 32 years of coming home with her back aching and her hands raw, and still, sitting on the edge of Imani's bed every single night to read her a book. You ever had somebody love you like that? Somebody who gave up everything so you could have something? That was Ruth. And Ruth had one saying, just one. She'd whisper it into Imani's ear whenever some kid at school made fun of her hair, or some teacher called on the white kids first, or some store clerk followed her around like she was going to steal something. Baby, let them underestimate you. It's the cheapest weapon you'll ever own. Imani heard that line 1,000 times growing up. She didn't understand it at first, but she would. Imani was smart. I mean, scary smart. Valedictorian at 17. Full scholarship to Spelman, then Harvard Business School, class of 2011. She could have gone anywhere. Wall Street, Silicon Valley, London, Dubai. She chose banking. You want to know why? Because of what happened to her grandmother in 2004. But we'll get to that. By 38, Imani had 15 years in institutional banking, compliance, acquisitions, civil rights investigations inside financial institutions. She had busted 3 major banks for redlining. She had gotten 412 families their homes back. She had a reputation in certain quiet rooms in Washington, D.C., as the woman you did not want opening a folder with your name on it. But you'd never know any of that looking at her. Because Imani drove a dented 2015 Honda Civic on purpose. She wore plain clothes to work on purpose. She kept her natural hair in simple twists on purpose. Grandma said, "Let them underestimate you. It's the cheapest weapon you'll ever own." And Imani had learned to wear that weapon like a second skin. Now let me tell you about Karen. Karen Wilson was 52 years old. Blonde bob, pearl necklace her mother-in-law gave her in 1998. A wedding ring so big it caught the light wrong. Married to a real estate lawyer named Gerald. 3 kids in a private school that cost more per year than most families in Atlanta made. Country club membership, white wine at lunch, a spray tan appointment every other Thursday. Karen had been the branch manager of Heritage Trust Bank's downtown Atlanta location for 19 years. 19 years. And inside Heritage Trust Corporate, Karen was known for exactly 2 things. Number 1, she hit her deposit targets. Number 2, and this one was whispered, never written down, Karen had a habit of losing loan applications. Specifically, loan applications from Black families, Latino families, immigrant families, anybody whose last name didn't sound like hers. 6 formal complaints had been filed against her over the years. You know how many went anywhere? 0. Every single one of them got buried. Quiet settlements, NDAs. We've spoken to Karen and she's been counseled. Counseled. Like she was a sick puppy and not a woman actively destroying lives. Here's a scene for you. That same Tuesday morning, 8:15 a.m., before Imani even walked in the door, Karen is standing behind the teller line, screaming at a 34-year-old black woman named Denise Brown. Denise has worked at this branch for 9 years. 9 years of perfect attendance. 9 years of customers leaving 5-star reviews with her name in them. What's Karen screaming about? A pen. A missing pen. Denise, this is exactly why people like you don't get promoted. You can't even keep track of office supplies. Do you understand how this reflects on me? Denise keeps her eyes on the counter. She doesn't cry. She learned a long time ago not to cry in front of Karen. Because Karen feeds on it. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll find it. You'll find it? Or what? You'll steal another one from the supply closet like your people always do? Did Karen just say that? Out loud? In a bank lobby? She did, and nobody said a word. Because that was the culture Karen had built. 19 years of it. Denise went back to her window and took a deep breath and smiled at the next customer like her soul wasn't bleeding. She didn't know it yet, but in exactly 94 minutes, her entire life was about to change. Now, let me break it down for you real quick, because I want you to feel the gap between these two women. Imani tipped waitresses 30%, even at cheap diners, especially at cheap diners. Karen tipped 8%, and one time, this is real, she wrote "Learn English" on a receipt at a Mexican restaurant where the server was from Ohio. Imani knew every security guard in her office building by name, asked about their kids, remembered birthdays. Karen didn't know the name of the woman who had cleaned her office every night for 6 years. Imani drove that beat-up Honda because her grandma taught her that flashy things were for people who needed to be seen. Karen leased a new Mercedes every 2 years and posted photos of it on Facebook with captions like, "Blessed and highly favored." Blessed. Highly favored. Meanwhile, a mile away, another black family was getting a rejection letter on a mortgage Karen had personally killed. You know what? Let me stop for a second. Let me talk to you. Yeah, you on the other side of this screen. You've met a Karen. Don't lie to yourself. You've met 10 of them. Maybe she was your boss. Maybe she was the cashier who asked to see your ID twice. Maybe she was the teacher who kept calling your son aggressive for asking a question. You know the look. That sweet little smile she gives you right before she twists the knife. And you also know the feeling of swallowing it, of smiling back, of going home and replaying it in your head at 2 a.m. Imani knew that feeling too. Imani had been swallowing it her whole life. But Imani had something the rest of us don't always have. Imani had a folder. And on that folder, in small black letters, was a name, a date range, and a case number from the office of the comptroller of the currency. She'd been putting that folder together for 14 months. 14 months of quiet visits to 11 different Heritage Trust branches, wearing her worst clothes, carrying fake IDs with different credit scores, watching who got approved and who got told, "Sorry, you don't qualify." 14 months of pulling internal emails through a legal subpoena nobody at the branch level even knew existed. 14 months of interviewing former employees who signed NDAs and were finally ready to break them. And at 8:42 a.m. on that Tuesday morning, Imani sat in her dented Honda in the Heritage Trust parking lot, closed her eyes, and whispered the only prayer she ever prayed. "Grandma, I'm going in." Then she buttoned up her old gray coat, and she walked toward the glass doors. 3 floors up, in a corporate office Karen Wilson had never once been invited into, a printer was quietly spitting out a document titled "Termination for Cause. Wilson, Karen M. Karen was about to scream at the woman who had signed that document, and she was going to do it in front of 12 witnesses and a camera phone. 9:42 a.m. Imani pushed open the heavy glass doors of Heritage Trust Bank. A little bell chimed overhead. The lobby smelled like old carpet and expensive perfume. She walked slowly, calmly, eyes scanning. Marble floors, 12 customers in line, 3 tellers behind the glass, 1 security guard named Tom Miller by the door playing a game on his phone. And there she was, Karen Wilson, behind the manager's desk near the back, sipping coffee from a mug that said, "World's Best Boss." Imani walked up to the new accounts desk. A young white teller named Ashley Davis smiled at her. Nervous smile. Ashley was 23, 3 months on the job. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" "Good morning, sweetheart. I was hoping to speak with the branch manager. It's an account matter. It's important." Ashley hesitated. Something about Imani's eyes. They were too calm, too still. Let me page her for you. 1 moment." Ashley picked up the phone. "Karen, there's a lady at New Accounts who wants to speak with you." A pause. "Yes, ma'am. She said it was important." Another pause. Longer this time. Ashley's face turned pink. She hung up slowly. "She'll be right with you." But Ashley wouldn't look Imani in the eye. Ashley knew what was coming. Ashley had seen this movie before. You could hear Karen's heels before you saw her. Click, 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 across the marble. Slow, deliberate. The sound of a woman who wanted everyone to know she was coming. She rounded the corner, took one look at Imani's coat, and smiled that sweet, poisonous smile. "Can I help you with something, sweetie?" Imani turned. "Yes, ma'am. I was hoping we could speak privately. It's about—" "Privately?" Karen laughed. A loud, performative laugh. Loud enough that 3 customers turned to look. "Honey, whatever food stamp problem you have, we can discuss it right here in the lobby. I'm a very busy woman." Imani's jaw tightened. Just once. "Ma'am, I really think this conversation would be better." "Let me see your ID." Imani slid her driver's license across the counter. Karen picked it up with 2 fingers, like it was contaminated. "Taylor. Of course it is." She dropped the ID back on the counter, didn't hand it, dropped it. That's when the air in the room changed. A woman in line, middle-aged, white, gray cardigan, cleared her throat and looked at the floor. An older black man near the door just shook his head slowly. "Tom!" Karen called out. "Tom, come here. I need you." The security guard looked up from his phone. "Ma'am?" "This woman is loitering. I need her removed from my branch." Tom blinked. She's at the counter, ma'am. She's not really—" "Did I ask for your opinion, Tom? I said remove her." Tom stood up slowly, took 3 steps, stopped. He didn't want to do this. You could see it in his face. But he needed the job. And that's when Karen turned back to Imani and delivered the line she'd been holding behind her teeth. "I run this bank. I decide who walks through those doors. And honey, you don't." That was the line. That was the scream. Loud enough to make a child in his mother's arms start crying. Loud enough to make Denise Brown, at her teller window, drop the receipt she was holding. Denise's hands started shaking. She turned her face to the wall and cried silently. 9 years of this. 9 years. And here it was again. A young man in a hoodie, 26 years old, name was Jerome, pulled out his phone and started filming. Karen saw him. "Hey! Hey!" "Delete that right now or I'll have you banned from every heritage trust in this state." Jerome didn't delete it. Jerome kept filming. That video would hit 40 million views by Friday afternoon. Imani's fingers moved over the leather folder. She opened it, just 1 inch, just enough for the top page to catch the light. Karen didn't look down. Karen never looked down. That was always Karen's problem. Imani took a slow, steady breath. "Ma'am, are you finished?" "Finished? I'm finished when you're out of my—" Imani pulled out her phone and dialed one number. 6 words. That's all she needed to say. 6 words that would end Karen Wilson's entire world. The phone rang once, twice. A man's voice on the other end. Deep, calm, waiting. "Mr. Johnson, it's time. Send it." That's all Imani said. 6 words. She hung up. Karen let out a sharp, ugly laugh. "Oh, that's adorable. You calling your little legal aid lawyer?" "Sweetie, I am the law inside this building. I own these walls. I own that door. I own—" Imani just looked at her. Didn't say a word. Didn't blink. That quiet stare shut Karen up for a full 3 seconds. And Karen hadn't been quiet for 3 seconds since 1993. The lobby went still. You could hear the air vents humming. You could hear the clock above the vault ticking. You could hear Tom, the security guard, breathing through his nose. And then it started. 90 seconds of silence. Then the printer behind the teller line woke up. Chunk, chunk, chunk. Ashley turned her head. A document was coming out. Then another. Then another. Every printer in the branch started humming at once. The one at New Accounts, the one in Karen's office, the one in the back by the loan department. Papers, papers, papers. Ashley picked up the first sheet as it slid into the tray. Her eyes got huge. Her hand started shaking. "Karen, not now, Ashley. Karen, you need to see this. I said not now." Then Karen's desk phone rang. She ignored it. It rang again. She ignored it. Then Ashley's phone rang. Then the loan officer's phone. Then the phone at the drive-through window. Every phone in the branch ringing at once. Karen's face finally started to change. Just a flicker. A tiny crack in the concrete. "What?" Every computer monitor on the floor flickered. A corporate email blasted across every screen at the same exact second. The subject line was in red. All caps. "Urgent. Branch leadership transition effective immediately." Ashley read the first line out loud without meaning to. "Effective 10 a.m. today, Karen M. Wilson is removed from her position as branch manager, pending internal investigation." The room gasped. I mean, literally. 12 people, one collective gasp. Karen's mug slipped out of her hand. Coffee exploded across the marble. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. Who sent that? Who authorized?" Imani slowly, very slowly, unbuttoned her old gray coat. 1 button. 2 buttons. 3. The coat fell open. And underneath that thrift store coat Karen had mocked 2 minutes ago, was a charcoal gray blazer. Tailored. Expensive. Real. And clipped to the lapel was a badge. A Heritage Trust corporate executive badge. Silver. Heavy. Real. The lobby didn't breathe. Ashley's mouth fell open. Tom, the security guard, took 1 step backward. Denise Brown, still behind her teller window, raised both her hands to her mouth. The badge didn't say branch manager. The badge said something much, much worse for Karen. Karen squinted across the counter, trying to read it. She couldn't. Her eyes weren't what they used to be. and she'd been too proud to wear her glasses in public since 2019. Who are you? Imani didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she reached into the leather folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. She slid it across the counter toward Karen. Ms. Wilson, please read the top line out loud. For everyone in this lobby. Karen picked it up with trembling fingers. Her eyes scanned the page. Her lips started moving, then stopped, then started again. I said out loud, Ms. Wilson. Karen's voice came out as a whisper. From the desk of the Senior Vice President of Compliance and Internal Investigations, Heritage Trust Bank, Imani R. Taylor. Her head snapped up. She stared at Imani like she was seeing a ghost crawl out of the floor. No, that's not. That's me, Ms. Wilson. Jerome in the hoodie was still filming. His hands were shaking, but he was still filming. Let me break the fourth wall for a second. You know that feeling when your whole life flashes in front of you and every single ugly thing you ever did lines up like dominoes? That's the feeling Karen Wilson was having right now. But here's the thing, y'all. The badge was only the beginning. Imani hadn't even opened the folder all the way yet. Karen's brain did what cornered brains always do. It rallied. She straightened her pearls, she wiped the coffee off her skirt, and she reached for the one weapon rich white women have been taught since birth. The victim card. This is a setup. This is a racial setup. You people planned this from the beginning, didn't you? You walked in here dressed like that on purpose to entrap me. Ms. Wilson. No, you listen to me. I have rights. I have a lawyer. My husband Gerald is a partner at Anderson, Brooks & Sullivan, and you are about to get sued for reverse discrimination so fast you're— Ms. Wilson. Imani's voice was still quiet, still calm. But there was something underneath it now. Something old. Something that had been waiting 22 years to speak. The only thing you're about to do is sit down. And right on cue, the front doors of the branch swung open. A man in a dark blue suit walked in, 50s, balding, nervous sweat on his forehead, a briefcase in one hand and his cell phone in the other. Greg Anderson, head of HR for Heritage Trust's Southeastern region. Imani, please, let's take this to a back office. Let's talk about this like professionals. Karen's face lit up. Greg! Oh, thank God. Greg, this woman is trying to— Karen, be quiet. Excuse me? I said be quiet, Karen. Greg turned to Imani with the desperate smile of a man who knew he was drowning but hadn't admitted it yet. Imani, can we please just— The optics of this, in the lobby, with the cameras. Let's go to the back. Let's figure out a package. A quiet exit. Nobody has to get hurt here. A package. A quiet exit. Nobody has to get hurt. Imani stared at him for a long moment. And in that moment, I need you to understand something. Because this is the part of the story where most people break. This is the part where even the strongest woman in the world starts to wonder if it's all for nothing. Because here it was again. Even now. Even here. Even with the badge on her lapel and the folder in her hand and 14 months of evidence sitting in a subpoena file. Even now, the system was trying to protect Karen. Quiet exit. Package. Nobody has to get hurt. Meanwhile, Denise Brown had been getting hurt every day for 9 years. Meanwhile, 312 families had been getting hurt for 2 decades. Meanwhile, a little girl in Birmingham, Alabama had once watched her grandmother walk out of this exact building in 2004, holding a rejection letter and trying not to cry in front of her baby. Imani followed Greg to the back office, but only because she needed a moment. Just one moment. Behind the closed door, she walked straight into the small bathroom off the conference room. She locked the door. She turned on the faucet. She looked in the mirror. And for the first time since she'd parked her Honda that morning, one single tear. Just one. It rolled down her cheek, and she caught it with her thumb, and she whispered to the woman in the mirror, "Not today. Not here. Not in their building." And then she closed her eyes, and she heard it. That voice. That soft, tired, beautiful Alabama voice. "Baby, let them underestimate you. It's the cheapest weapon you'll ever own." Imani opened her eyes, wiped her face, walked out. Let me take you back, just for 2 minutes. Back to 2004. Imani was 16 years old, skinny, hair in braids, carrying her grandma's purse because Ruth's arthritis was acting up that day. They walked into Heritage Trust Bank's downtown Atlanta branch on a Saturday morning. Ruth needed $3,000, just $3,000. The roof of their little house in Birmingham was leaking, had been leaking for months. Ruth had patched it herself 4 times with tarps from the hardware store, but the last storm had gone straight through, and her bedroom ceiling was dripping water onto the bed where she slept. Ruth had her pay stubs. 32 years of cleaning jobs, impeccable credit, a small savings account, references from every white family she'd ever worked for. She sat down across from a 33-year-old assistant branch manager with a blonde bob and pearl earrings, a young Karen Wilson. Karen smiled that smile. Karen looked at Ruth's application. Karen said, "I'm so sorry, ma'am. You just don't qualify." Ruth said, "But, ma'am, my credit score is 780. I've never been late on—" "I'm sorry. It's a bank policy. There's nothing I can do." Imani watched her grandmother stand up from that chair, watched her grandmother say, "Thank you for your time, ma'am," in that soft, polite voice black women of her generation were trained to use. Watched her grandmother walk out of that building holding the rejection letter like it was a death certificate. Ruth lost the house 6 months later, moved into a rental on the east side of Birmingham, died there 2 years later of a heart attack in her sleep. And 16-year-old Imani sat at the funeral and made a promise to a casket. "Grandma, I'm going to walk back into that building one day, and I'm not going to have to say a word." Back to the present, the conference room. Greg was sweating through his dress shirt. "Imani, look, we can make this go away. 6 months severance, NDA, Karen quietly retires, we put out a statement." "No." One word. The room froze. "Imani, Greg, I said no." She set the leather folder down on the conference table. Click. Page 1. Greg flipped it open. Page 1 is Ms. Wilson's title, Senior Branch Manager, 19 years. Page 2. Greg turned the page. Page 2 is a summary of the 14-month internal investigation I have been personally conducting, authorized by the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency under case file GA-2024-3098. Greg's face went from pink to gray. He turned the page again without being told. He reached page 3, and Greg stopped breathing. Because page 3 wasn't about Karen. Page 3 was about Greg. That's my name." "I know, Greg. That's my initials on those loan denials." "I know, Greg. Imani, please, I have kids. I have a mortgage. My wife just—" 6 years, Greg. 89 loan applications, all approved by your signature, all denied by your phone call 2 hours later. Every single applicant, black, Latino, or immigrant. Greg's hands were shaking so hard he couldn't hold the folder anymore. It fell onto the table. "I was following orders. Karen told me—" "Karen doesn't outrank you, Greg. You outrank Karen." "Imani, please. So did every family you helped destroy." She said that last part quiet, but it hit him like a bat. Greg started crying. A 54-year-old HR executive in a blue suit, sitting in his own conference room, crying into his hands. Imani didn't move. Imani didn't comfort him. Because there comes a point in every one of these stories where the audience needs to understand something hard. Compassion has limits, and mercy is a currency you spend on the innocent. Imani walked to the door and opened it. "Denise, can you come in here for a second?" Denise Brown walked into the conference room. Her eyes were red. Her cheeks were still wet from the lobby. "Denise, honey, please sit down." Denise sat on the edge of the chair like she was afraid it would snap. "Denise, how long has Karen been talking to you like that?" Denise's voice came out as a whisper. "Every day, ma'am. For 9 years." "Every day?" "Every day." "And did you ever report it?" "I tried, ma'am, twice. HR said there was no evidence." Imani looked at Greg. Greg couldn't look back. Imani turned to Denise, and for the first time that whole morning, her voice cracked. Just a little. "Denise, I believe you. I have believed you for 14 months. And starting today, nobody in this building is ever going to talk to you like that again. Do you understand me, baby?" Denise's whole body started to shake. Not from fear. From something else. Something she hadn't felt in 9 years. Hope. And 3 floors above them, an elevator was already descending, carrying 2 men in dark suits with federal badges clipped to their belts. Karen Wilson still didn't know they were coming. Imani walked back into the lobby. Karen was exactly where Imani had left her, standing by her desk, phone pressed to her ear, hissing into it. "Gerald! Gerald! You need to get down here right now!" Some black woman is pretending to be corporate, and they're all going along with it. It's insane. It's... "Hello? Gerald? Gerald, are you there?" The line was dead. Gerald had hung up on his wife. Somewhere across town, in a downtown law office, Gerald Wilson had just received his own email. A very quiet email. From a very senior partner, letting him know that his name was about to be in some very public filings, and maybe, just maybe, he should start thinking about distance. Karen didn't know that yet. Karen slammed the phone down. You! She pointed at Imani. "I don't care what that badge says. I don't care what that email says. I have been at this bank for 19 years, and I know everybody at corporate, and there is no way some nobody in a thrift store coat is my—" "Ms. Wilson." Imani raised her voice. Just a little. Just enough. "Please sit down." "I will not!" "Ms. Wilson, sit down." Karen sat down. Even Karen didn't know why. Imani turned to face the lobby. 12 customers, 3 tellers, 1 security guard, 1 HR executive crying quietly in the back office, 1 young man in a hoodie still filming with shaking hands. An audience. And every good reckoning needs an audience. "My name is Imani Taylor, and I owe everybody in this room an explanation." The lobby was silent. "I have been with Heritage Trust Bank for 11 years. I started as a junior compliance analyst in Charlotte in 2015. I was promoted to Senior Vice President of Compliance and Internal Investigations in 2022. Karen's mouth was open. "For the last 14 months, I have been running a federal investigation into discriminatory lending practices at 11 different branches of this bank, visiting undercover, pulling records, interviewing former employees under whistleblower protection." Ashley was crying now, quietly, at her window. "But there's something else y'all need to know." Imani paused. She let the silence sit, because she knew the weight of what she was about to say. 3 weeks ago, Heritage Trust Bank was quietly acquired by a much larger institution, Summit Federal. The paperwork cleared on February 10th. It hasn't been announced to the public yet. It will be announced at a press conference in this lobby in about 45 minutes. The older black man near the door whispered, "Oh, Lord." He already knew where this was going. I led the acquisition team for Summit Federal. I was the reason Heritage Trust was acquired, and as of 8 a.m. this morning, Imani looked directly at Karen. I am the interim regional president of Summit Federal's new Southeastern Division, which makes me, Ms. Wilson, the person who oversees all 43 Heritage Trust branches in the state of Georgia. She let that sentence land. Including this one. Karen's face went completely white, like all the blood had decided to leave at once. You want to know what a human being looks like when their entire life reframes itself in real time? Watch Karen Wilson's face right now. Because Karen Wilson didn't scream at some homeless woman. Karen Wilson didn't scream at some customer off the street. Karen Wilson screamed, in front of 12 witnesses, at her boss's boss's boss. Karen's lips started moving without making sound. You set me up." Imani shook her head slowly. "No, Ms. Wilson. I didn't set you up. You set yourself up. Every single morning for 19 years. I just brought a folder." But I have rights. I have—" So did my grandmother. The lobby went quiet again. Karen blinked. "You're what?" "Ruth Taylor, 2004, this branch, a $3,000 home repair loan. You denied it. Her credit score was 780. She lost her house. She died 2 years later." Imani's voice was very, very steady. "You don't remember her. I know you don't. Because there were hundreds of Ruth Taylors. You never looked at any of them long enough to remember their names." Karen's hand went slowly to her throat, like she was trying to physically hold in whatever was trying to come out. And that's when the front doors of the branch opened again. This time 3 men walked in. 2 in dark blue suits with silver badges clipped to their belts. FBI, Civil Rights Division, Atlanta Field Office. And behind them, a woman in a charcoal pantsuit carrying a leather briefcase, Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Williams, Northern District of Georgia. The lead agent walked straight up to Imani. "Ms. Taylor, we got your call. We've been parked outside since 9:30. You good?" "I'm good, Agent Moore. Thank you for coming." Agent Moore turned to Karen. "Karen Wilson?" Karen couldn't answer. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish on dry land. "Ma'am, my name is Agent Daniel Moore with the FBI Civil Rights Division. We need you to come with us. We have some questions regarding federal fair lending violations at this branch over the past 6 years." Karen's eyes rolled back in her head, just for a second, like she was about to faint. She didn't, but everybody in the lobby saw it. Jerome in the hoodie was still filming. Bless that man. Agent Moore gently took Karen by the elbow. "Ma'am, please stand up." Karen stood up. Her legs weren't working right. Her pearls were crooked. Her blonde bob was flat on one side from where she'd been running her hands through it. She didn't look like the queen of the lobby anymore. She looked like a scared old woman who finally understood she wasn't special. Let me pause for a second, because I want you to catch the next part carefully. As the agents walked Karen toward the door, Imani held up one hand. "Wait, Agent Moore, 1 second." The agent stopped. Imani walked over to Karen, stood right in front of her, eye to eye, close enough to whisper. And Imani whispered just 3 words. "I forgive you." Karen's face crumpled, not from the arrest, from those 3 words. Because forgiveness from the right person at the right moment is heavier than any handcuffs. Imani stepped back. "But forgiveness isn't the same as mercy, Ms. Wilson. And justice isn't the same as forgiveness. You're still going to face every single consequence you earned." Agent Moore gave a small nod. "Let's go, ma'am." And as Karen took her first step toward the door, Imani reached back into the folder. Because there was one more secret in there. A secret that was going to detonate in the next 15 minutes. A secret with a name nobody in that lobby had said out loud yet. 10:58 a.m. The Heritage Trust lobby didn't look like a bank anymore. It looked like a courtroom. Press had arrived. 3 local news trucks were already parked on the curb outside, tipped off by Summit Federal's corporate communications team exactly 18 minutes earlier. Channel 5, Channel 11, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Camera lights clicked on. Microphones went hot. Summit Federal had set up a small podium by the teller line. Navy blue backdrop, silver logo, and Imani Taylor stepped up to that podium, still wearing the same old gray coat, now unbuttoned, the executive badge catching the light from the news cameras. She tapped the microphone once. The lobby went silent. My name is Imani Taylor. I am the interim regional president of Summit Federal's Southeastern Division, which, as of this morning, includes all 43 Heritage Trust branches in Georgia. The cameras clicked. 2 hours ago, inside this lobby, I was called a filthy animal. I was called a monkey. I was told I smelled like the projects. I was told to crawl back to a crack house. I was told I didn't deserve to breathe the same air as the branch manager. Somebody in the crowd gasped. Denise Brown, standing by the teller line, reached for Ashley Davis's hand. Ashley squeezed back. The woman who said those words has been the manager of this branch for 19 years. Her name is Karen Wilson. And for 19 years, every complaint against her has been quietly buried by people inside this bank who were paid to make those complaints disappear. Imani paused, looked directly into Channel 5's camera. That ends today. She turned her head. The agents had Karen standing 10 feet away, in handcuffs now, waiting for the cameras to catch her face. Imani looked at Karen, straight at her. Ms. Wilson, you said you ran this bank. Karen's eyes were glassy. You were wrong about that. You said I didn't belong here. You were wrong about that too. And you said I didn't deserve to breathe your air. Imani let that one hang. Let the cameras drink it. Effective immediately, Ms. Wilson. You're fired. For cause. Without severance, without references, without pension. With a federal civil rights investigation attached to your name for the rest of your natural life. Karen opened her mouth. She tried. She really tried. But nothing came out. Not a word. Not a sound. The woman who had been screaming for 19 years finally had nothing left to say. And that silence was the loudest thing in the lobby. Jerome in the hoodie lowered his phone for the first time that morning. He was crying. A 26-year-old man in a hoodie, standing in a bank lobby, crying into his sleeve. Because some moments are too big to film. Some moments you just have to witness with your whole face. Agent Moore gently turned Karen toward the door, but Imani wasn't finished. There's one more thing. Imani reached into the folder, pulled out a second document. I told you earlier that 89 loan applications were killed by a phone call from this branch's HR liaison, Greg Anderson. What I did not say publicly, until right now, is that those 89 phone calls went to a very specific executive at corporate headquarters who signed off on every single one of them. Imani read the name out loud. Gerald Wilson. The lobby went dead quiet. Karen's husband, a partner at Anderson, Brooks & Sullivan, the outside counsel for Heritage Trust Bank since 2009. The man who drafted every single one of the NDAs that buried the 6 prior complaints against his wife. Somebody in the back whispered, "Oh my God." Mr. Wilson will be surrendering to federal authorities at 2 p.m. this afternoon, on charges of conspiracy to violate fair housing and fair lending laws. His law firm has already voted, as of 10:45 a.m. today, to remove him as partner. Karen's knees actually buckled. Agent Moore had to catch her elbow to keep her standing. Her whole world, the husband, the house, the country club, the pearls, the Mercedes, the kids in private school, all of it collapsing in real time on live television. But Imani wasn't done, because clean justice isn't just about punishment. Clean justice is also about making people whole. And now, I want to announce something much more important than Karen Wilson. She turned back to the cameras. This morning, Summit Federal is establishing the Ruth Taylor Community Lending Fund, $50 million, named after my grandmother, Ruth Elizabeth Taylor of Birmingham, Alabama, who was denied a $3,000 home repair loan at this exact branch on a Saturday morning in 2004. Imani's voice caught. Just once. She swallowed it down. We have identified 312 families over the past 2 decades who were denied mortgages, small business loans, and home repair loans at this branch for reasons that had nothing to do with their credit and everything to do with their last names and the color of their skin. Every single one of those 312 families will receive a letter in the mail within 60 days. That letter will contain a formal apology from Summit Federal, full retroactive reimbursement of every fee they paid, and a pre-approved offer for the loan they were originally denied, at the interest rate that was available in the year they applied. Denise Brown put both hands over her mouth. Ashley Davis was openly sobbing now. 3 customers in the lobby were crying. Tom, the security guard, who had stared at his shoes 2 hours ago, was now standing at full attention with tears running down his face. And finally, Denise Brown. Can you come up here, baby? Denise shook her head no. Denise, please. Denise walked to the podium on shaking legs. Imani put one hand on her shoulder. Denise Brown has worked at this branch for 9 years. Perfect attendance. The highest customer satisfaction reviews of any teller in our entire southeastern region. And she was called names in this building every single day by Karen Wilson. Starting today, Denise Brown is the new assistant branch manager of this location, effective immediately, with a raise of $28,000 a year. Denise's legs gave out. She sat down right there on the marble floor in her teller vest, and she laughed and cried at the same time. Imani crouched down next to her. Call your mama, baby. Right now. On the clock. Denise nodded and reached for her phone. Okay, let me break the fourth wall one more time, because I need you to feel what I'm feeling. There are moments in life when justice is a legal procedure. Paperwork, signatures, fines. And then there are moments when justice is a grown woman sitting on a marble floor, calling her mother to tell her that the lady who has been grinding her down for 9 years is being walked out in handcuffs. That's the kind of justice you can't buy. That's the kind of justice you can only earn. At 11:23 a.m., the FBI walked Karen Wilson out of Heritage Trust Bank. The cameras caught every step. Her hair was a mess. Her pearls were crooked. Her face was wet with tears that nobody in that lobby had any sympathy for. And as she passed Imani on the way to the door, she stopped, just for 1 second, and she whispered the only thing she had left. Why me? Imani looked at her, quiet, almost gentle. Because somebody had to be the example, Karen, and you volunteered 19 years ago. The doors closed behind her. That night at 6:15 p.m., Imani walked back into the empty lobby one last time. The cameras were gone. The customers were gone. The marble was mopped clean. She walked to the exact spot where her grandmother had stood in 2004. She set her coat down on the chair. She closed her eyes, and she whispered into the empty room. We made it back, Grandma. I told you we would. We made it back. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't wipe this one away. This one, she let fall. Because the real question isn't what happened to Karen Wilson. The real question is, how many Karens are still out there, in offices just like this one, right now, screaming at someone who's about to change everything? Let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with it for a second. Have you ever walked into a room where somebody decided, just by looking at you, that you didn't belong there? Maybe it was a store, maybe a job interview, maybe a school meeting about your own child. And did you stay quiet like those 12 customers in that lobby? Or did you say something? And if you'd been Imani, holding that folder, knowing exactly what was inside, would you have opened it slowly, the way she did? Or would you have thrown it in Karen's face the second she opened her mouth? Here's what I believe. Your grandmother's struggle, your mama's tears, every word you ever swallowed at a job where they underpaid you and overlooked you, none of it is wasted. It's tuition. And one day, baby, you walk back in. If this story moved you, if you've ever been the quiet one in the lobby, hit that subscribe button right now. Because next week, I'm telling you about a janitor who owned the whole skyscraper, and nobody knew until the Christmas party. Drop a fire emoji in the comments if you believe the quiet ones are the most dangerous ones in the room. And share this video with somebody who needs to hear it today, because somewhere, right now, another Karen is screaming, and another Imani is buttoning her coat.